To John's point, Tracy, tennis needs to be a space with no borders, boundaries, or barriers to entry, none at all. What is the sport, in your opinion, doing well right now to achieve that, and what can we do better?
Well, we've certainly made so much progress, but I would like every tennis player to realize what the blacks have had to go through. There was so much discrimination at clubs, at events. Before 1950, when Althea was finally let in to play the U.S. Championships, which has now become the U.S. Open, she had to play an ATA, which is a different association altogether. So there's discrimination in so many ways. And it actually took an American woman, a white woman, Alice Marble, to write a letter and lobby the USTA. It was called the USLTA at the time, and say Althea should be able to play. So it was so important that Althea broke that color barrier in 1950. It was just 3 years after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball. So it was an important time. And I think we don't give enough credence to what Althea had to go through and how difficult that must have been.
Yeah, Althea Gibson was a trendsetter, was a model, and in so many different ways did so much for so many people. And it's amazing to see some of the moments turn into movements. And the idea is for the movements to keep going forward. And in a very complex world that we live in with so many things happening, tennis can help, with equal opportunity and pathways from grassroots all the way up to professional tennis. And we just have to make sure we check ourselves and create that environment for everyone. I think in this complex world, the simple theme can make things better. And the simple theme is equality.
I come at this, guys, with the perspective of a white guy in his 40s, but I've seen tennis make its share of unforced errors, and I've also seen a lot of signs of encouragement. We've been talking about Althea Gibson, but I also think we need to dwell for a moment on the Williams sisters. And they may not have had the kind of exclusion and flagrant racism that Althea Gibson faced, but they confronted their own share of challenges that other players didn't have to surmount. And they've done it with grace. And I think their legacy, to some extent, lies in what the makeup of women's tennis and tennis overall looks like today. And if you want to talk about inclusion, go down the rankings and look at players, especially but not exclusively from the United States. And the Williams sisters' impact goes a lot beyond how many majors they won.
Yeah, and as Chanda said in the last segment, it's all about continuing to learn and educate ourselves because, it starts somewhere with Althea Gibson, Bob Ryland, then to Arthur Ashe, and then so on and so forth with the Williams sisters. And what we're seeing today, Frances Tiafoe, Coco Gauff, and others. The USTA put out a tweet today saying on Juneteenth they were honoring Althea Gibson, a pioneer who opened doors and opened minds. John, there was a tweet from Leslie Allen who called the USTA tone deaf in their original statement back on June 1st, as Tracy mentioned, the fact that it took a white woman, Alice Marble, to stand up. And that's why Althea Gibson was able to play in the U.S. Open back in the day, John. And Chanda mentioned this as well. What is it going to take to have more white people speak up and speak out?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in counter that I think the events of the last few weeks ought to be encouraging. And we've seen a lot of players from all over the world, from different cultures, different races, stand with, we mentioned Coco Gauff and Frances in the piece, but we've seen a lot of other, Tommy Paul and Riley Opelka were taking part in a march. I mean, I think the events of the last few weeks are encouraging. I think Leslie's point is well taken, too. She wrote a long story that people ought to check out on ESPN.com's website. So, again, I mean, this is something that tennis is confronting like all sectors. And the mere fact that here it is in the middle of June and we're having a conversation is a good sign, I would say, in and of itself.
Yeah, and I think Leslie Allen, who is actually someone that I played on the tour with, and she won a big event in Detroit in 1981. That was actually the first big major tournament since Althea won as an African-American. So, I think she spoke so well about it. And going backwards, because the USTA sent out a tweet about equality, but Leslie wanted everybody to remember and the message not to get lost on what was happening back in the 50s. People need to remember that era as well.
Yeah, it's such a complicated world, and I think all the stuff that's going on is so great in so many ways. Look, we all have to realize what we don't know. And the key is to learning and listening. You talk about the white community, what can we do? Look, I'm a middle-aged white guy. I haven't walked in those shoes. All we can do is listen, learn, grow, and keep the antenna up to truly understand what's gone on and what's going on. And only then can we really help. And we need to really try to help in terms of turning a moment into a movement and keep the movement going, keep the voices coming, keep the understanding happening, and make the people that are in the power positions understand and change themes so that life does become equal.
That's a great point. We all have to help in this effort, educate ourselves, because this is not going away even when the topic stops trending.